I was interested in law when I was a sophomore in high school. That's when I actually first started becoming interested, and then had no family members or even friends that were in law, but just became interested in law and government. And then when I went to college at the Ohio University branch campus, I took several government classes, and I was encouraged by the professor during the during the classes at Ohio University to enter law.
How did you get started with hospice and volunteering at the Pickering House? I
was looking for something to do to help with service in the community, and being a judge, I'm limited on what I can do. Even with Fair Hope Hospice, for instance, I cannot get near or come into contact with any type of fundraising, for instance, so that it doesn't appear that I'm using my position to raise monies. My mother-in-law was on hospice in 1990 here in Fairfield County. That was my first exposure to hospice. And since that time, I've had other family members and friends who have come into contact with hospice. I would drive by the Pickering House sometimes, and I was more curious about it than anything. And eventually, one day, my wife and I were traveling home, and she said, I didn't turn at our normal turn, and she said, "You're going to the Pickering House, aren't you, Chris?" And I said, "Yes, I'll stop out at the Pickering House and go from room to room and visit patients who are there, and then sometimes what I've done with that, sometimes the patients, if they're well enough, you can read to them or have a conversation with them. Sometimes, most of the time, people who are on hospice simply like to have a visit, and then sometimes they like to be left alone, and so you have to be good at reading the situation and respecting the person's privacy, the family's privacy. I've met a number of very good people, both patients and their families, sometimes even to the point of establishing relationships that last after the patient has passed.
So what has your experience by volunteering at the Pickering House, what has it taught you about yourself?
While I felt drawn to the Pickering House for some reason, I also felt hesitation because I didn't want to. Death was not something that was it wasn't something that I wanted to necessarily be involved with. I would avoid going to nursing homes to see people. I would avoid going to funeral homes. And so I think I would go, but it wasn't. And now I feel, I guess, more comfortable knowing that it's not necessarily a bad thing, and that people, we want people to die with dignity, and to be able to die with dignity and with as much peace as possible.